Hello, my name is Kalina Tag, and I am pleased and very honored to present to you my interpersonal communication project. Welcome to my world. First, I would like to state my overarching goal, which is enhancement of my interpersonal communication slash social skills to the extent that I am able to overcome obstacles which create filters to efficient socialization. Moving to the next slide. Upon accomplishment of my set's overarching goal, I will be able to succeed with the process of enlarging the conversation, maintain more control and balance with my behavioral blend, become an effective level 1 listener, function and communicate under pressure opposed to conveying symptoms of the flat brain syndrome. Moving right along. Next slide. According to Mel Carbonell's Uniquely You Resources personality test, as well as his readings from his text, How to Solve the People Puzzle, Understanding Personality Patterns, my personality type is said to be both dominant and submissive. Wow. Next slide. My behavioral blend has impacted my conversation in many positive ways, which includes being outspoken and upfront, being honest, compassionate, and empathy for others, open-mindedness, being non-judgmental at least most of the time, self-motivation and initiative, being genuine, and having a sense of integrity. Unfortunately, my behavioral blend has also contributed to some negative attributes, which are assuming that listening involves solving everyone's problems, arguing as a means of proving the other person wrong, becoming easily frustrated, oversensitive to situations that really don't involve me, inadequately addressing conflict, being consumed and overly concerned with what I think others think or expect of me. Next slide. Potential barriers in my interpersonal context. First, allowing internalized thoughts and feelings to dictate how well I listen to others. Resorting to all or nothing thinking. Forming opinions of others based on past experiences and personal biases. Placing unrealistic expectations on myself as well as others. Failing to accept people for who they are, but trying to change them. Wow. Next slide. Okay, Kalina, now how are you going to deal with these barriers? I would ask myself. My answer to that, by working diligently to move from a level 2 and 3 listener to a level 1 listener, which entails listening without being judgmental or critical of the speaker, improving communication and social skills by distinguishing between personal choices and respect for others' choices, using verbal feedback by asking what, when, where, who, how, who, and why as a means of preventing befuddling. What about the all or nothing thinking? Well, grounding of my identity, becoming aware of my identity issues, accepting the not so good about myself, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable, realizing and knowing that it's okay to make mistakes, being honest with myself and the complexity of my motivations, learning to incorporate new information into my identity in ways that are conducive and healthy. And the next slide. The opinions formed from biases and past experiences. My answer to that would be to deal with the here and now, which would be what's in front of me opposed to what's behind me. Communicate the underlying meanings and stories behind my opinions, as well as biases with those who may be affected by them. Learning to distinguish between my opinions or conclusions and the actual truths or facts. Recognize when I am stereotyping, making snap judgments or inferences. And how about the unrealistic expectations? My answer to that would be, I am going to accept others for who they are as well as their contributions to diversity, which would entail considering diversity to be an opportunity toward learning, becoming knowledgeable of personal biases and prejudices, but still conveying an attitude of acceptance toward myself and others. Talking and listening in ways that demonstrate appreciation for others' uniqueness and unmeasurability. Okay, so I hear what you're saying, Kay, but I know you still think you can change the world. It's something that I would probably say to myself. And you may be right. However, this is an area of my interpersonal arena that I need to continue to address. In other words, this is my own personal lifetime project. I'm not saying it's right and I'm not saying it's wrong. It just is. One thing I will say is that I will continue to strive toward the process of acceptance of myself and others. Moving right along to the next slide. Pardon me for a second. Identification of internal noise pollution. Which would be lack of confidence, self-confidence, just at times, depression towards certain situations, fears and anxiety, frustration and anger, preconceptions and misconceptions, personal insecurity, thud experiences. External pollutions would probably include, excuse me a second, conflicting behavioral blends and personality types of others. My ignorant neighbors, for example, flat brainitis of others, family members, environmental stressors, finances, a non-supportive ex-spouse. Notice I said ex. My solutions to these internal and external pollutions would include, first and foremost, acknowledge the basis and underlying cause of the problem. As it pertains to fear, consider the worst possible scenario. Acknowledge it and then consider to ask myself what I would do next. Own my own thoughts and feelings, recognizing how they impact the ways in which I respond to others and situations, refraining from the art of defending myself, but actually learning to utilize a deviant behavior. My plan of action would include, I plan to acknowledge my own interpersonal communication deficits as well as ineffective listening patterns. In doing so, I believe this will enable me to enlarge my conversation with others. I've come to recognize that past hurts and unpleasant experiences have influenced my conversation significantly. Therefore, I know that I have to learn to forgive. Forgiveness, as it states in Neil T. Anderson's The Bondage Breaker, is forgiving others for your sake so you can be free. With this in mind, I believe that my conversation will be free of judgments and preconceptions. Realizing and accepting that some dimensions of life is simply unchangeable and should be accepted as fixed elements. Examples, the actions of others, relatives, parents,